What happens when two wealthy passengers mock their taxi driver for his humble life, only to have him save them from a life-threatening crisis? In a storm of panic and rising floodwaters, a moment of arrogance turns into a powerful lesson in humility, and the driver proves that true courage comes from the heart, not from wealth. It was a dark, rainy evening in the heart of the city, the kind of night where the streets glistened under the glow of streetlights, and the sound of tires splashing through puddles echoed through the air. Raj, a modest taxi driver, sat behind the wheel of his old but reliable cab, his fingers gripping the steering wheel as he navigated through the wet streets. The soft hum of the engine was almost drowned out by the relentless sound of raindrops hitting the windshield. Raj had been driving for hours, his face weary but determined. He had a family to support, and no matter how tired he felt, the work had to be done. As the city's neon lights flickered in the distance, Raj's cab pulled up to a luxurious hotel. A couple stepped out from under the grand entrance, their designer clothes dripping from the rain. They looked like they belonged to a different world, one of wealth, privilege, and status. The man, Ethan, wore an expensive tailored suit that clung perfectly to his tall, confident frame. Beside him, his wife Claire, draped in a fur coat and carrying a designer handbag, seemed like she hadn't seen a drop of rain in her life. They walked toward the taxi, their heels clicking on the pavement with an air of superiority. Without a word, they climbed into the back seat. Ethan settled in, his eyes scanning the interior with clear disdain. Claire wrinkled her nose as she caught sight of the worn upholstery. Raj, ever polite, greeted them with a warm smile, but it was met with an icy silence. "Do you really expect us to ride in this?" Claire said, glancing around with a mix of disbelief and judgment. Ethan snorted. "This is what you call a taxi? It looks more like a junkyard on wheels," he added, chuckling as he leaned back. His tone was mocking, dismissive, and Raj could feel the sting in their words. They had assumed, without a second thought, that he was just another uneducated driver, struggling to make ends meet. Despite their condescending remarks, Raj kept his composure. He nodded politely, his eyes focused on the road ahead. He had heard it all before, the judgment, the assumptions. But it didn't matter. He had a job to do. And no matter how they looked at him, he would remain calm and courteous, doing his best to get them to their destination. As the cab rolled through the rain-soaked streets, Raj tried his best to focus on the road. He could hear the couple in the back seat, their voices full of arrogance and mockery, cutting through the hum of the engine. Claire, in particular, seemed unable to stop herself. "Can you believe this? A taxi driver in a ratty old cab like this," she scoffed, her voice dripping with disdain. "I bet he barely finished high school." Ethan chuckled. He probably couldn't even get a decent job if he tried. Just stuck driving this junk all day. Raj clenched his jaw, trying to block out their words, but they cut deep. He had always prided himself on his work ethic, but here were two strangers who saw him as nothing more than a means to an end. He forced a tight smile and kept his focus on the wet, winding road ahead. The couple, not content with their verbal jabs, started to get more demanding. "Come on, Raj. Hurry up, we don't have all night." Ethan barked, his voice irritated. "Drive faster, we're late." Raj's hands tightened on the wheel as he glanced at the slippery road ahead. "It's not safe to speed," he replied calmly. But Ethan was relentless. "I don't care. If you don't drive faster, I'll make sure your tip's non-existent. We're not paying for a ride this slow." Raj's heart sank, but he pushed forward. The rain was getting heavier, the wind howling. The road ahead, a less traveled route through the outskirts of the city, became increasingly treacherous. Suddenly, with a violent rumble, the ground trembled beneath them. A deafening crash rang out as the road ahead buckled under the weight of a massive landslide. Raj slammed on the brakes, but it was too late. The cab skidded to a halt just inches from a massive pile of debris blocking their path. Before Raj could even react, the storm intensified. The rain now fell in sheets, and the water level on the road began to rise rapidly. Panic set in as Claire screamed, her voice shrill. "What are you doing, Raj? Get us out of here!" Ethan's face twisted in fury. "You idiot, you took the wrong route. This is your fault." Despite the harsh words, Raj knew the truth. There was nothing he could have done. The situation was out of his hands. The couple's privilege and wealth meant nothing now. The road ahead was impassable, the water rising quickly, and every moment brought them closer to real danger. The couple's earlier mockery vanished, replaced by sheer panic. The luxury of their world had crumbled, and they were now at the mercy of the storm. Their cries for help rang out into the downpour, but in that moment, Raj was the only one with the knowledge and calm to navigate them through what lay ahead. The tension in the air was palpable as the floodwaters continued to rise, threatening to swallow the road. Raj's calm demeanor was a sharp contrast to the chaos erupting in the back seat. Ethan and Claire were no longer mocking him. Now, they were panicking, their eyes wide with fear. Raj knew he had to stay focused. He had dealt with storms before, and while this situation was more dangerous than usual, he couldn't afford to let fear take over. "Stay calm," Raj said, his voice steady. "We're gonna get out of here. I've been through worse." Ethan's face was pale, his voice shaking. "What do we do now? The road's blocked. We're trapped." Raj scanned the area quickly. He could hear the sound of rushing water and see the dangerous floodwaters inching closer to the car. The road ahead was completely impassable, but Raj knew the area well. He had driven this route countless times, even during heavy storms. There was a small footpath through the hills that could lead them to safety, but it wasn't easy to get to. "Listen," Raj said, his voice firm but reassuring. "I know a way. We'll have to leave the cab and head through the hills on foot. It's not far, but we need to move quickly." Despite their fear, Ethan and Claire reluctantly agreed, knowing they had no other choice. Raj instructed them to grab what they could and follow him. The wind howled as they stepped out into the torrential rain, and the ground beneath them was slick with water and mud. Raj led the way, his experience guiding them as they moved through the rough terrain. The journey was treacherous, the water rising faster than they anticipated. Claire slipped on the wet ground, her foot sliding dangerously toward a rushing stream. Her eyes widened with terror as she tried to regain her balance. But it was too late, she was losing her footing. Without hesitation, Raj lunged forward, grabbing her wrist just in time. The water was cold and swift, pulling at her with relentless force. Raj's heart raced as he yanked her to safety, pulling her away from the edge of the stream. Claire gasped, her breath shaky, her hands trembling as she clung to Raj in gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice breaking. Raj didn't respond. He was already scanning the path ahead, focused on getting them all out safely. The danger was far from over, but he had no intention of letting them down. He had become their protector, guiding them through the storm, risking his own safety to keep them alive. After what felt like an eternity, the trio finally emerged from the treacherous hills, the storm still raging around them, but their path now clearer. The rain had softened to a steady drizzle, and the sound of rushing water was now faint. They stumbled through the last stretch of muddy ground, their shoes soaked and their clothes clinging to their skin. Ahead, a small group of emergency responders stood, their flashlights cutting through the mist, guiding them toward safety. Raj, though exhausted, breathed a sigh of relief. He had gotten them through the worst of it. As they approached the responders, one of them rushed forward to help. "Are you all right?" the responder asked, his voice calm but urgent. Raj nodded, already feeling the weight of the ordeal lift from his shoulders. "We're safe now," Raj said, his voice steady, though his heart still raced from the tension of the last few hours. Ethan and Claire, now visibly shaken, stood behind him. They had both been quiet for the past few minutes, still processing the overwhelming fear they'd just experienced. Their usual confidence was gone, replaced by a sense of vulnerability that made them seem almost unrecognizable. One of the responders turned to the couple, offering them a blanket and a bottle of water. Ethan took a deep breath, his hands still trembling as he accepted the offer. He glanced at Raj, his expression softening. I don't know what to say," Ethan began, his voice low. "We were terrible to you. You were just doing your job and we treated you like you didn't matter." Claire nodded in agreement, her eyes filled with genuine remorse. "We were so focused on ourselves, so caught up in our own world, that we never considered what you might be going through. You risked your life to help us. You didn't have to, but you did." Raj remained silent, unsure of how to respond. He hadn't helped them for any kind of recognition. He had done it because it was the right thing to do. But seeing the sincerity in their eyes made him realize they had truly learned something in that moment. "We're so sorry," Claire said, her voice trembling. "You didn't deserve how we treated you. You saved our lives." Raj smiled softly, his exhaustion catching up with him. "It's all right. I'm just glad we're all safe now." For the first time, the couple saw Raj not as a taxi driver, but as a man who had shown them humility, strength, and courage when they needed it most. Their wealth and status no longer mattered in the face of the true value of human kindness. As the emergency responders continued to tend to their needs, Ethan and Claire huddled together, exchanging glances, still processing everything that had happened. The adrenaline from their ordeal was starting to fade, replaced by a deep sense of gratitude. Raj had saved their lives, guided them through perilous terrain, and put himself at risk without hesitation. They couldn't just walk away without doing something to show their appreciation. Ethan took a step forward, his usual arrogance replaced by a genuine humility. "Raj, we owe you more than words can express," he said, his voice firm. "You saved us. You risked your life for ours. Please, let us give you something. A reward. Anything you want." Raj shook his head, a quiet smile playing on his lips. "I didn't do it for a reward," he said simply. "I just did what felt right. I'm just glad we're all safe." But Ethan and Claire were insistent. They couldn't let it go so easily. After everything Raj had done for them, they wanted to show their gratitude in a way that mattered. "We understand that, Raj," Claire said, her voice soft but determined. "But you deserve more than just our thanks. Let us help you." Raj hesitated, his mind racing. He didn't want to accept anything from them, but he could see how much they truly meant it. After a moment of thought, Claire spoke again, her eyes filled with warmth. "We know you've been working so hard, and we've learned a lot from this experience. Let us help you and your family. You deserve it." A few weeks later, Raj received an unexpected surprise. As he was finishing up a day of driving, a sleek, brand-new car pulled up in front of his modest home. Ethan and Claire were in the car, smiles on their faces. Ethan stepped out first, holding a set of keys in his hand. "This is for you, Raj," he said, his voice full of sincerity. "We've arranged for a new car, one that will help you with your work and give your family a little more comfort. It's the least we could do." Raj stood frozen, astonished by their gesture. The overwhelming kindness left him speechless. "We've also set up a small fund for your family's needs," Claire added, her voice filled with compassion. "It's not much, but we hope it helps." Tears welled up in Raj's eyes, but he fought them back, overwhelmed by the generosity and humility before him. As they exchanged a few final words, Raj realized that the true gift they had given him wasn't the car or the money, it was the change in their hearts. Ethan and Claire had learned the value of humility and human kindness, something he hoped they would carry with them forever. And in that moment, Raj felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that sometimes the greatest rewards come from the unexpected bonds formed through compassion.